Assalamu alaikum. Today we have with us the President of the Lost Foundation of Islam, Ajani Mukarram. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Thank you, sir, for granting this interview.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Please tell us a little background about yourself.
Okay, I came into the Lost Foundation of Islam in the late 1980s, around 1988. I came into the Lost Foundation of Islam. I was a student in engineering at Tuskegee University, and I heard some information about the Honorable Silis Muhammad, and I decided to investigate it for myself. And after investigating it, I signed on, I went through orientation, and I became a member of the Lost Foundation of Islam. Throughout the years, I have been an engineer working in manufacturing for several different companies in the United States, and more recently have become a owner of real estate and a teacher and a fighter for freedom, justice, and equality for Afro-Descendants, and a spokesperson for AFRI.
You said you were an engineer. How did you get into that field, and what inspired you?
The thing that inspired me to be an engineer, during high school I was really good at math and science, and I had a counselor who told me that there was a need for black engineers, Afro-Descendant engineers, and so I decided to enroll in Tuskegee University, which is a historically black college, which is known for producing top black engineers. And I was inspired by tinkering with things, and I decided to become an engineer.
How did you hear about the Honorable Silis Muhammad?
While at Tuskegee University, Minister Louis Farrakhan came to the campus to give a talk, and when he gave the talk, I was pretty inspired by some of the words that he spoke. I was talking to one of the students there, and he told me, Tifford was his name, he told me that his father was the leader of the Nation of Islam. And I asked him, is your father Farrakhan? He said, no, Silis Muhammad. And that was a little confusing because I'd never heard about Mr. Silis Muhammad. And so I was privileged to go to Atlanta with Tifford and get an introduction to Mr. Muhammad. And after studying the teachings, I decided that Islam was for me.
How and when did you join Lost Foundation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Silis Muhammad?
I joined the Lost Foundation of Islam back in the late 1980s. The thing I should point out to you, there was an orientation class that lasted about 9 weeks. I came from a Christian background. I was raised as a Baptist, and so I had some knowledge of scriptural and Bible information. As I began to study in orientation class, I challenged my orientation teacher, and the more I challenged the information, the more I began to convince myself that it was true. And so I signed on with the Lost Foundation of Islam.
The other question is, why, what really motivated you to join Lost Foundation of Islam? Why?
I guess one of the things that really motivated me is I grew up in the South, in Georgia. Although we had gotten through the Jim Crow days and through our civil rights days, just on the other side of civil rights, I grew up during the civil rights era as a kid. I still saw the inequalities between blacks in America and whites here in America. I thought it was unfair that blacks and whites could have the same educational background or similar educational backgrounds and get all together different career and live all together in a different neighborhoods. The streets in our neighborhoods were never as nice as the streets in counterparts, the white people in America's neighborhood. And because of these inequalities, I was looking for a way to even the playing field. The church, I thought, would offer that for us. As I was in the church, I began to get curious. I always had a curious mind, and certain questions I would ask the preacher, he couldn't answer, or sometimes I would get the answer, you can't question God. And I thought, if I'm going to be like God, I should be able to question Him. when I came into the Lost Foundation of Islam, I was able to ask any question that I wanted to ask. And that freedom to ask those questions and to seek a true understanding inspired me to join on to the Lost Foundation of Islam.
Yes, sir. You are the first president of the Lost Foundation of Islam in history. How do you feel about that, and what are your viewpoints on being the first president of the Lost Foundation of Islam?
First of all, I'm most gracious to have been a member in the Lost Foundation of Islam and to see it shaping in its direction. The Honorable Silis Muhammad is a brilliant mind. He foresaw this moment years ago, the Lost Foundation of Islam coming into its own and becoming a democratic process where we just wouldn't have a dictator. The Honorable Silis Muhammad recognized, like all true leaders and great leaders recognize, that he wouldn't live forever, and that he needed to set up a process in which these teachings and this political platform that we've now entered could continue. And so he set up a Senate, a House of Representatives, and an executive branch, which, as you stated, I'd become the first president of this executive branch. I'm humbled by that. I'm excited about it. And I know that we've just started. We're in our embryonic stage of walking to a fully democratic process for Afro-Descendant people.
Sir, what is your vision for the office of president, and what are your goals while in office? What do you wish to see accomplished while you hold that position?
There are several goals that I have. One of the first and primary goals is to increase the citizenship within the Lost Foundation of Islam. I have recently drafted a document that I've sent out to all the ministers entitled The Approach. And eventually that document will be shared with all of the believers. It is a method in which we will first grow the citizenship of the Lost Foundation of Islam. In addition to growing the citizenship and growing the Lost Foundation of Islam, another goal that I have is education. Not just education in the sense of going to school, but education in the sense of going to school and learning about self, a history of Afro-descendants, a history of the people we really are, not just our history here in America, but our history that dates back prior to our coming to America. All civilized nations hold on to some cultural advantages or some culture of their existence. For example, the Polish people that moved from Poland to America still practice some of their Polish culture. The Jewish people are a prime example. Not only do they send their children off to school within the United States, but they also send their children to school where they learn and practice Jewish culture solely. And I think they do this on Saturdays or sometimes in the evenings. One of my visions is to start if you will, a Saturday school, a evening school for our kids where we're just solely educating them and introducing them to their culture and to Islamic culture.
How do you envision future presidents of the Lost Foundation of Islam, and what is your advice to them thus far?
I envision future presidents pretty much like I envision presidents of the United States of America. There is a Constitution Committee that is rapidly putting the final touches on our Constitution. Our Constitution is in place, but it's under some revisions right now. One of the things I see as I go through, I am taking notes, I'm documenting, I'm learning from the hard knocks of life, and I'm documenting this such that we have procedures in place where the next president could have a blueprint such that we don't make the same mistakes. Similar to the United States of America, they have a blueprint for the president. I am working on the cabinet of the executive cabinet, And I'm also working with both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, to put forth bills and to pass bills and to really be a democratic process. So I envision the future presidents having a roadmap, a blueprint to continue the success that we're on.
Yes, sir. Can you please define and explain the term Afro-Descendants for those of our people that don't know what it means and how it came about?
I sure can. The term Afro-Descendant is a term that's born out of our struggles, really. The Honorable Silis Muhammad taught us during our early walks into the United Nations that we were lost people, a people that were lost from the knowledge of ourselves, our culture, our religion, and our language, and that we should define ourselves and put forth a term that would define us, not just those of us here in the United States of America, but those of us lost throughout the slavery diaspora, Central America, South America, the Caribbeans. He sent me into Canada to a UN meeting around, I want to say 2001, 2002. And there I put forth the term that we should have a UN identified, recognized term that recognizes all of those people throughout the slavery diaspora, descendants from Africa. I was fought vehemently. The people did not want the term lost found people to describe them. The Honorable Silis Muhammad would eventually go to La Ceiba, Honduras, and there was a term used by the Brazilians, by the Colombians, by the people from South America, Peru, and Chile, and these black people use the term Afro-Descendants. They all call themselves Afro-Colombian, Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Peruvian, and here in America we were calling ourselves African-American. And so the Honorable Silis Muhammad said, well, there's already a term that's used to encapsulate all of us, well, we just need now to put a definition to it. And so he sought to put definition to it, and this term Afro-Descendant, he described, along with people there, should be those of us who were captured from Africa for the exclusive purpose of slavery, whether we fell into slavery or not, but because some of us, although we were captured for slavery, did not actually fall into slavery. And it would separate us from the term African American or African Brazilian. This term Afro-Descendant would mean someone that was brought to these different lands and didn't choose to come for the purpose of slavery, versus a person that moves from Africa today to America would be entitled an African American, but they would not have experienced the trials and tribulations of slavery and the lingering effects of slavery. And so that term Afro-Descendant captures all of us in these different countries who've gone through slavery or the lingering effects of slavery.
Yes, sir. Recently, the United States of America has elected its first black president, Barack Obama. What are your stance, viewpoints, and feelings on this subject matter?
The United States of America is a wise government. The United States of America stands for and promotes the thoughts of mostly white America. We have our first black president in Barack Obama, and it has inspired many people in America, predominantly blacks in America. However, President Barack Obama, during his campaign, said that reparations was a taboo, and reparations itself is a payment or a repair from one nation of people to another nation. And the United States of America has damaged us with its 400 years of slavery and the lingering effects of slavery, but has not sought to repair us. President Barack Obama, in his approach, is not offering any repair for us as a people. He's talking about change and repairing America, but how can we get to true change without changing the conditions of Afro-Descendants here in America? So while some are excited about Barack Obama's presidency, it still leaves us in a quandary. It still leaves us wanting for more. It still leaves us ill repaired, because reparation is not on the agenda of Barack Obama. So my excitement still lies with the Lost Foundation of Islam, who is pushing for equal human rights throughout the world for all Afro-descendants, whether we live here in America, South America, or Central America. And as the first president of Afro-descendants, I am pushing for equal justice and equal human rights throughout the world versus trying to make America great.
Sure. What direction do you wish for our people, the Afro-descendants, to take in the future?
I guess my position mirrors that of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, and it mirrors that of the Honorable Silis Muhammad. Whereas the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said on the back of Muhammad Speaks that we want our people who were descendants of slaves to have equal justice, equal rights, and that we want them to have autonomy and freedom, justice, and equality, either on a separate territory in this United States of America or elsewhere. Because after 400 years, since we can't get along in peace, then our slave masters should repair us. The Honorable Silis Muhammad said to members of the United Nations that we lost our culture, we lost our religion, we lost our ancestral language. And according to Article 27 on the International Covenant of Political and Civil Rights, it says that a people that have lost their language, culture, and religion have lost their human rights. I want for Afro-descendants restoration of those human rights. I want equal justice under the law, and I want autonomy for Afro-descendants.
So, please describe the newly unveiled government of the Lost Foundation of Islam so our people can have a sense of what it is, how it is structured, who it's for, and the relevance of your presidency within this government and what it means to our people, the Afro-descendants.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, in an interview, I think it was 1972, entitled Meet the Press, was asked by the interviewer, when you are passed away, how will the nation be run? Who will be your successor? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke. He said, there will not be a successor. The interviewer was pretty crafty. He asked the question in a different way. He said, well, who would administer the properties of the Lost Foundation of Islam when you're gone? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the properties of the Lost Foundation of Islam would be administered by a government body similar to that which you see in the United States, a constituted government. He says, the interviewer, so your successor will do that? He said, no, I won't have a successor. There would be a divine government set in place to continue the teachings of the Lost Foundation of Islam. The Honorable Silis Muhammad, in his wisdom, was able to set that up. And our government is set up very similar to the United States of America. We have a House of Representatives. We have a Senate body. We have a judicial body where we have a Supreme Court. We have an executive body where we have a president and a vice president and the cabinet there. So the Lost Foundation of Islam's government, its newly developed government, is a democratic process. And currently We are in a change with the government. We're not solely a democratic process yet. We still have the Honorable Silis Muhammad here with us, who is like an advisor to us, this newly developed government. But as we develop and we grow our wings and we're able to fly the ship ourselves, we will be a fully democratic process and a democratic government, like unto the United States of America that has, that has its own constitution.
So, can you give us an update on the progress in the United Nations battle for reparations for Afro-Descendant people?
Yes, the United Nations itself, prior to the Iraqi war, the highest subject, the biggest talk, the talk of the United Nations were Afro-Descendants and the rights of Afro-Descendants. We were making a lot of leadway. The United States of America, I would say, almost single-handedly tore down the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations. We are now, Afro-Descendants, on the agenda of the United Nations. Because we were making so much leadway, and the United Nations accepted the term Afro-Descendants, which in itself is a form of reparation because it now gives us our United Nation human identity. We were making great leadway. The Honorable Silis Muhammad is not sure of the position of the United Nations and where it's going to go. He is still slated to go over and do some talk and discussions. We made a lot of leadway. We made some connections internationally with other Afro-Descendants, yet we're not sure about the posture and the position of the United Nations currently, and with some of the member states what direction they want to take the UN in. But we're not sure, and I don't want to display too much of where the UN is going to head, but the Lost Foundation of Islam is headed in a direction to fulfill that great human rights move of having our human rights identity identified and establishing it and having some autonomy for ourselves. So there is a plan that the Honorable Silis Muhammad and the executive body and the Senate and the House of Representatives are working toward, but we don't want to display those exact details at this moment.
I know that you briefly had mentioned something about the Constitution.
Yes.
And this my final question is, can you tell us about the progress with the Constitution of the Lost Foundation of Islam? When, where, and how will be presented to our people and the Lost Foundation of Islam?
The Constitution itself is already formulated. As I spoke earlier, there are some revisions that's being made to it. Those revisions should be done by our next Savior's Day celebration, which happens the week of February 26 in Atlanta, Georgia of 2009. We should have our Constitution revisions completed. The House of Representatives and the Senate will review it and make recommendations, and then it should come to me for final approval. So our constituted government is rapidly coming into form. So we should have things in place no later than end of 2009. Initial stage is February of 2009 at our Savior's Day celebration.
All right, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you for your time. I appreciate you granting us this interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time too.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes,